Welcome to this week's Business Forum, a comprehensive program where we talk money issues. I am Giseline Nachibule. Now, first things first, inflation rates have seen a steady rise after the pass-through effects of the exchange rate depreciation. The Uganda shilling has witnessed a constant devaluation against other currencies, especially the US dollar.
According to the Governor Bank of Uganda, Professor Emmanuel Tumusiime Mtebire, an 8 to 10% increase in annual core inflation is expected by the end of 2015-16, a rise of 1 percentage compared to the April 2015 forecast. This inflation is attributed to the flows being witnessed especially from the United States in speculation of a move to increase interest rates by the US.
Rise in core inflation was part driven by the pass-through effects of the exchange rate depreciation, was in part driven by the pass-through effects of the exchange rate depreciation.
Commercial banks are expected to hike interest rates to a range of 24 to 25% so as to regulate borrowing tendencies. This is compared to the average of 20% interest rates that banks have been operating at in the previous month.
What we need from Bank of Uganda is not per se cash. Because it was Uganda shillings, we have the printer. We can't print Uganda shillings to manage Uganda shilling. All we need in terms of capital, what we talk about the capitalization, is instruments you can sell in the secondary market.
Professor Mtebire says the new financial budget will not raise domestic borrowing beyond what was raised last year.
Our economy will contain all the consequences of this year's financial year budget as long as the government maintains proper fiscal control.
And this followed concerns of whether the skyrocketing 2015-16 budget estimates would demand more government borrowing to meet the budgetary requirements.
Uganda Revenue Authority has promised to expand its tax base in a bid to raise more revenue in financing the 2015-2016 financial national budget. The revenue body is also working on a promise of helping the small and medium enterprises, SMEs, grow by applying a tax rate that does not suffocate their business with maximum compliancy.
Uganda Revenue Authority has assured SMEs that it is going to apply a tax rate that will encourage growth both in tax revenue and business survival. Henry Saka, the Commissioner for Taxation, says the target is to have all businesses pay taxes, thus easing the budget. Saka disclosed that the taxation rate on SMEs has reduced from 3% to 1.5%.
But the rental tax, it is part of income tax that is charged and collected by Uganda Revenue Authority.
All businesses are required to have a tax identification number before going into operation, as per URA directives.
We'll know through the use of the national ID how your life or your behavioral patterns is as far as being paid by government or being paid by someone else, your financial transactions, and so that we are able to see you in one profile beyond the tax identification number.
Government will be financing 44.5% of the 2015-2016 national budget, a figure which Uganda Revenue Authority must collect.
Now, Total Retail Sales Country Manager Alan Omron has revealed the perceived friendly 24 trillion budget for Uganda in the financial year 2015-2016 is bound to spur the hiking of fuel prices across the country. Total's predictions follows the high levied taxes on oil importing companies such as Total in the country. This means in the attempt for fuel importing companies to recoup their profits, they will have to shift the burden to the consumer. In this report, Omron says those to be affected will be vehicle operators, border motorists and other fuel-consuming businesses.
Following the taxes levied on oil and gas importing companies, Total Uganda, which now boasts of running 190 new fuel stations in the country, says the taxes imposed on fuel importing companies are feared to skyrocket fuel prices in the country. Total Retail Sales Country Manager Alan Omron made the revelations while opening up their 119th new fuel station in a Kampala suburb of Nigeria. Omron says that fuel taxes as per the new budget that was read by the Finance and Economic Planning Minister Matia Kasaija on Thursday gives a leeway to oil and gas importing companies to shift the price of recapping their profits on the final consumer. Despite the tax increment on fuel, Omron says Total has the passion to continue serving masses, especially the middle class, as they struggle with the extension of their services to areas outside the Kampala city.
We are going to see more and more of our stations changing the image, but above all, we're also going to add into the network where we are growing in terms of numbers, but as well as changing the image. We're going to see a lot of changes, putting restaurants, coffee shops in our stations. This is to make sure that our clients enjoy the service in the station as a one-stop center.
Total Uganda, since 2015, adopted a new outlook which resonates with the brand's new marketing mantra. Total has been operating in Uganda since 1955. This means it has been in Uganda for 60 years.
Economists and policy experts believe the 2015-2016 budget should be able to incorporate all sectors to benefit masses. A week after the release of the 24 trillion Uganda shillings 2015-2016 national budget by the Finance Minister Matia Kasaija, the key question remains whether the skyrocketing budget will be to the benefit of the masses through funding the ox plow of the economy, the agriculture sector.
24 trillion national budget has been a center of discussion of who it would benefit most since its release on Thursday last week. The criticism culminates from the failure by the relevant ministries to convince Ugandans on the optimal use and allocation of the budget. According to Julius Kiza, professor at Makerere University, government should marry the agriculture sector with its counterparts like infrastructure, energy, and education in order to ensure its transformation.
If infrastructure is the most binding constraint to economic growth, not the qualifier. Because there are other binding constraints, like our attitude to work, unemployment, getting people working, maybe use applying the cable as well. However, the extent to which infrastructure will contribute to servicing loans remains questionable.
Chiza advised government on its budget plans to ensure investments in other sectors of the economy.
Budgeting is not about percentages, it's about what one wants to do. And I think that's one thing Uganda needs to resolve, so that we stop basing our budgeting on what percentage have we given agriculture, health, and these other kinds of things. The question should be, what are they going to do?
Agriculture contributes 15% to the gross domestic product of the country, but the sector remains undoubtedly the neediest sector.
You are watching WBS Business Forum, and we now go for a short break and we'll come back with Let's Talk Exports.